Ladies and gentlemen, Big Hairy News.
Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another scary, hairy episode of Big Hairy News. That was my jump scare. Do you know what I just did whilst I was watching it? I went, oh, that's a good freeze frame. I'm grabbing that for a thumbnail. Very kissable lips that man has. Hi, Chewy. How are you, man?
Oh, not as good as I was before you said that out loud. Jesus.
I'm just copying it. I'm just copying it onto my software. There we go. I now have a copy of it. Kia ora whānau. How are you all? Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good one. Boy, have we got a show for you. I tell you what, Chewy, I feel like for the past week and for the next week, every story we do is going to tie back into the Middle East, either via what's happening in the Middle East or via petrol prices. It's like, it feels like everything, cost of living, oh, that's petrol, international relations, oh, that's the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. You know, it's like everything. It is actually the all-encompassing news story at the moment that is interacting or influencing every other story as well. Everything.
And I think this is the reason everybody is saying, like, even if this is solved tomorrow, this is something we are going to be dealing with for 7-8 months easily, because the tail on this thing is going to be crazy. Like, I think Qatar has had like 20% of its oil production affected, and that's like the machinery of it. Like, I mentioned last week that the fuel crisis in the late 70s affected 7% of the world's supply. This is affecting 20% of the world's supply.
On the news tonight, they were talking about the response that Iran, the response that Iran's have, the Iran response that the Prime Minister has actually come out against, yet still being quiet on the Israeli response and the US response. It's interesting that. But one of the responses from Iran has been, hey, I think it might have been Qatar and a couple of the Arab states, we're going to blow up your water desalination plants, which is the only way those regions can get fresh water, like literally the only way. I've said this before in this show in this last couple of weeks. They said that the Third World War would be about fresh water. Blowing up desalination tanks. I mean, is that truthful? Is this kind of a signal towards it?
And look, they're just responding in kind as well. The Israelis targeted Iran's desalination plants as well. So I mean this is the sort of nasty, dirty war that this is going to be. I read a really interesting opinion piece today that just had the sheer insanity of what is going on here. Over the weekend, Trump has allowed Iran to sell oil. So remember, there are sanctions on Iran that they can't sell oil. The Americans have now let them sell any oil that is currently in transit with no sanctions. And they've loosened sanctions on Russian oil as well, because the midterms are coming up. And if fuel prices are too high. This is the thing. I've never seen more Americans go, I'm sorry I voted for Trump because their petrol price is too high. And that's it. That's the issue. That's the button issue. That's going to go, maybe this guy's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
I mean welcome to the table, comrades, but Jesus. So yeah, they're in the position now that because of the midterms and because of the fuel prices, they're lowering these sanctions on Russia and Iran so they can make more money. They'll get money for that oil, and then they'll make weapons to fire at the Americans and their allies over. It's bizarre, like just head fuck territory that nobody really knows what's going on.
I don't
crazy.
yet really understand this idea that we'll talk about this later because it's part of the news. That New Zealand has said, oh, by the way, we can now have petrol that's, that will set our standards to the same standards as Australia. And I'm like, well, hang on. Are you suggesting that we are now going to fight Australia to get the fuel that would have gone to them, and who will be sending that to us rather than to Australia? It's like, it's all a bit of a, so, okay, that's I understand that we're not yet going for the sulfur-laden gasoline of Russia, but apparently we're going one step dirtier, and that's the gasoline, the petrol that can go into Australia. But Australia is going to want that. So I don't even understand what this is going to achieve, if anything.
I just a point of order there. I think the Australians call petrol gasoline. I saw that in a documentary.
Gasoline. All right.
But yeah, Australia had, I believe, 3 fuel shipments turned around over the weekend, returned to base. So I think this whole everything is fine. We've got loads of fuel, including our stockpiles, which Willis was talking about over the weekend. I think that's dreadfully naive. I think South Korea and Singapore are going to face a choice of like, well, we can sort of go, my bad, we'll make it up to you, but you're certainly not having fuel now.
This has been just, I just thought I'd bring up the imagery of her talking about it. Because has there ever been a worse photo in political history? I was trying to figure out how to say this nicely, Whānau, and I was checking with various words I was allowed to use with Chewy before we came to. And I think I've settled on a particular way of phrasing it, which is still going to be offensive to lots of people, but not as offensive as it could have been. And that is like, she looks like a Make-A-Wish winner who's completely out of place, wearing clothes that are too big. And I just... her PR team must hate her, because you see this as her press secretary,
whole situation,
and you go, hey boss, just so you know, you look ridiculous. You look like you've won a prize and you've come along and had to wear the big people clothes, and this imagery will haunt you for the rest of this year. Hello, Marsden Point, safety people, fix this or she doesn't wear it. Like, honestly, it's the tilt of the helmet. It's, honestly, it's both hilarious and shocking at the same time that an individual and her team would have such little understanding of kind of PR and press out there at the moment that I'm lost for words. I'm lost for words.
Yeah, this sort of photo op is always there to show the politician as a person with their finger on the pulse. They actually go out there and they see what's happening and that sort of thing. And when it's genuine, it works. But it's always a risk that you're putting basically an office worker in real workers' clothes and hoping
big people clothes
normal. And in this case, they didn't. But yeah, what you're saying is that there's nobody on her team, nobody that came with her, press secretary or anything like that, that said, maybe we should make sure that her helmet's on straight before the cameras roll. And there's nobody from the company that wanted to go, oh, actually, your helmet's on a bit fucky. Do you want to sort that out? Like, nobody has thought to say anything. At the good end of the scale, that's incompetence from them, and I encourage it greatly. At the other end of the scale, they hate her, and they want her to look like a dumbass. My whole question for this whole thing is, why did this press statement have to be made from on top of a fuel container?
Oh, because petrol, Chewy. Petrol behind me. Yeah. Look, I'm good. Petrol. We have petrol.
There's a boat there.
Yeah.
Take my word for it. There's fuel in it, and I absolutely had to be here to point at it and say that that's full of fuel, actually, so everything's normal. It's so performative.
The other thing, just on the fuel,
wasn't different if she did it from Parliament.
Yeah. Here's the question as well about the fuel that I want answered. This all started about 2 weeks ago when we had 50 days of fuel in the country or on the way, or 7 weeks. Today they're saying we've got 50 days of fuel in the country or on the way. Shouldn't that have reduced somewhat? Where have these other weeks magically appeared from?
I think what's happened here, the ship behind her, that's actually the SS $4 a litre.
Right.
So we're actually wanting the SS $3 and $2.50 a litre. They're somewhere else in the world. We've got the wrong boat. That's not Nicky's fault.
The point you made about America, though, as well, is they are obviously screaming about their gas prices, and their gas prices are still probably the best in the world, other than those countries like, is it Saudi Arabia? Some of those countries that you don't pay for fuel. It's just a part of being a citizen. Because if you look at what they pay per gallon, it ends up being like about $2 or $2.50 New Zealand per litre. Except they have lived in a world where they haven't had to care about how much they consume. So they've all got their big, massive trucks and stuff. And now that it is, they're feeling the pinch. But they, especially the Western world, they've probably got the best prices of petrol still in the Western world. So, oh well. Anyway, stuff. Happy Otago Anniversary Day, Chewy. I forgot at least 3 times today. This was a public holiday. One time was when I was going to the post shop. Another time when we wanted to go to the chemist, and all these different times I literally was in the car driving to the post shop. So Whānau, if anyone's ordered merch, it's taken me a while to get back on top of things since I was out of my studio for a week because my wife was downstairs with COVID. I'm on top of everything again now. I was literally driving off to the shop today to be able to be like Donald Trump and be a good boy. I'll be a good boy, like he called himself the other day. And then it was, Otago Anniversary Day. So they're still on the boot of my car and they'll go to the couriers tomorrow. But yeah, it's a very strange thing, Chewy, coming from Auckland, growing up in Auckland. Auckland Anniversary is huge. It's a huge weekend. It's the last weekend in January. It's sort of seen by many as kind of the last weekend away in summer. A lot of festivals and stuff happen over that weekend. And in Otago, it's like, oh, that's right. It was a holiday today. And some people down here, for people who don't know, actually purposely don't celebrate it. Because what they do is they go to work today on the public holiday, and then they have they have an extra day at Easter, because Easter's obviously just in 2 weeks from now, and they take an extra one. So rather than going Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and they just tag it onto the back of there. So it's a very different culture. I'm not used to it yet, Chewy. I'm not used to it.
Look, as long as you had your 5+ cheese rolls that you're supposed to have, and I think you've got to build a shrine to an Otago Highlanders rugby player from the mid-90s.
Oh, okay.
Tane
Randall.
Know any of the names.
Done.
Let's say Tane Randall.
Yeah.
Josh
Gronfield? Josh Gronfield would be more so, probably. Everyone knows Joshy.
Yeah.
Squashy Joshy.
Joshy.
Yeah. Tane Randall was I think he was blindside flanker. He made it to the All Blacks as well, but he was interesting because down here is the House of Pain. So when he was captaining the Otago team, it was the House of Tane, which kind of works quite well.
Rhymes.
Yeah, because it rhymes. So
he was also hilariously the manager of Central Park Interactive, the video game store that I used to go to, and sometimes he'd try to be behind the counter, but it was very clear that he knew nothing about video games. And
right.
If gamers were normal people, they would have left him alone. But once they worked that out, it was just like, go and ask him a question, bro.
Just arguments happening in the chat.
Tell him what his favourite faction in Red Alert 2 is.
Arguments. And I wasn't suggesting Josh was AB's captain. I was saying Tane was the Otago captain, I think. That's what was House of Tane. I think Josh was a better rugby player, though. So Josh was a more complete. He was open side flanker, probably one of the top 3 we've ever had, maybe 4. Now that Richie's can be brought in there. So, yep. Anyway, so
let's talk about something else. So
we're probably not supposed to be here, Chewy. We're on holiday, aren't we? Isn't this supposed to be a holiday?
Well, you're paying me time and a half and said that I had to.
Well, that's what I said. That means super chats tonight. We insist on time and a half for super chats. You got to be careful making jokes like that, because then people do it, and then I feel guilty for making a joke that people have done. Okay, so tonight, actually, as with what we're talking about, we've got quite a lot surrounding Middle East stuff. We're going to talk about Luxon's comments about Iran, and also some of the video we've just seen. We have got Cameron Bagrie. I spoke to Cameron over the weekend. He didn't have time to come and join us tonight, but he is questioning Nicola Willis's numbers. There's a story from this weekend, so we'll have a look at that around this kind of reserve of fuel that we've got. Yeah, but he's an economist.
And
he's an economist
for the whole time.
Like
we've never not criticised her numbers. They've always been wrong.
We're such the dumbest people in the room that Cameron was going to come on. I asked him to come, but he couldn't make it. He's still the smartest person in the room, though he's not here, Chewy. We're going to read his words off stuff, and he's still going to be the smartest person in the room. So we'll have a look at that. And also, Winston's State of the Nation. I had to watch an hour of 6 minutes. You know, I got tricked actually, Chewy, because Radio New Zealand streamed it. And I looked at the Radio New Zealand thing and it was like 38 minutes. I'm like, I guess that's going to be 30 minutes with some stuff. Okay, I'll watch it. Got to the end of the Radio New Zealand broadcast and it cut off. I mean, oh shit, they've missed the last couple of lines. I should go check out what was the last 60 seconds was. I went to it and there was another 25 minutes, which I then sat through and watched. So even RNZ cut out after 35 minutes from Mr. Peters. But I watched the whole thing. And I've got a bunch of things to show us from that, all very short clips. But there's also some things about who he is speaking to and who is going to vote for him. Mm. And I think, before I forget it, I'm going to write down something that was said today that relates to that. I'm just going to write it down so I don't forget when we get to talking about that. So we'll have a look at that as well. And it's going to be a big old night. Whānau, a very exciting night. Very glad to have you all on board. Let's have a look at the Patreon. I had a Patreon message from one individual the other day, still talking about being charged more and more each month. We've been told by Patreon, if that's impacting you, if you've found that you've been charged more the following month, contact them. We don't see anything different. I've had people tell us that sometimes if you're doing it through Apple Pay really clips the ticket on the way through.
Do not do it through Apple Pay, Google Pay, anything like that. Like, cancel it and redo it direct through Patreon.
Yeah, and the other thing is, we don't really do this because it's a lot harder for us to track. But I've suggested to that person, if they'd like to continue, that we do have a bank account number that people can contribute to as well, rather than Patreon. We're not really going in that path yet because it's a lot harder to track and know who's there and who's not there and provide those people access to things like meetups. And so it's not something we're driving quite to, but if it's a difference between you wanting to contribute and you not wanting to because of what's happening with third-party apps, then just fire us a message and we can help you out. And of course, we're incredibly grateful for anyone who does choose to do that. The other thing is, of course, we do. There's that photo. I love that photo so much. She is so. I just don't understand how someone. I mean, Chewy, if I did this right, if I came out and I spent the whole show like that, right, just the whole show, didn't reference it.
I'm really conscious of that because I put on a hat sometimes and it's like a little like it, and I see it. I mean, obviously she can't see it, but everybody else can. Nobody has said anything to her. That is hilarious to me.
Yeah. A bit of news, a bit of update from the shop and stuff. I was speaking to this week. What is it today? 23rd, 24th. Probably within 2 days we'll have those new stickers. These stickers here that are going to go alongside this hoodie and this t-shirt. Ditch Approaching 26 stickers will be here. Now this might sound like a lot, but I'm going to say we're only going to have 1,000 stickers. Now, what I mean by that is people often, like with the Nicky No Boats, people often buy groups of 50 and stuff because they want to stick them around. That means, if 20 people did that, I'm not suggesting that will happen, but they'd be all gone. So 1,000 actually isn't all that many when it comes to something that's a bit more sort of activist-y. So they'll be coming in this week. I was going to do... Oh, that's right. And I was talking to Alibaba, and they originally told us that the enamels would be here within 40 days. Today is day 37, and I got told today that they're going to push production tomorrow. So I'm like, hang on, you said I can see what's going on. And so I've been giving them arseholes today. So hopefully we'll see those within a couple of weeks. But stickers here tomorrow. They've got those ones. They've got if the left vote, the left wins. And there is the BHN stickers, which we've never had. Never had a BHN sticker. We will finally have a BHN sticker. All right, team. Chewy. Oh, and there's one other thing. Let's actually start with it because I don't really know what we're going to do with it. But we all agree, and like, even though this is a kind of trite saying from any government or any opposition party that's behind, the only poll that matters is the one on election day. It is actually also true.
Polls are bullshit.
It is actually also true. But what we typically hear is people use that when they're losing, and they're happy to reject it when they're winning in the polls through the season. There was another poll put out today by RNZ. We are going to look more at these polls as they go through this year, because obviously the closer we get to election day, the more relevance they have. That even though Chewy likes to say they're bullshit, that might be the case, but they influence. There is a lot of research out there within political voting is that people want to vote for the winning team. So if you're someone who doesn't really take it all that seriously and you see that like National's got a big lead and they're going to be government, you sort of either innately on the inside or you want to be able to say to people, I back the winner. So polls can influence elections, whether they be accurate or not. So they do get more important as they go on. Well, there was a new one out by RNZ today. Let's have a bit of a listen to Chewy's best mate here talking about the poll this morning.
A new poll out this morning makes more tough reading for National. They're down again, this time 30.8%. Labor topping the party vote preference, 35.6%. This is RNZ Reid Research. New Zealand First up to 10.6%. The Greens are 10.1%. ACT at 7%, Te Pāti Māori 3.2%. Thomas Coughlin, the Herald's political.
So let's just leave that up. We'll go back to the commentary in a second, but 5 points is a pretty significant. It's outside the margin of error. Our margin of error is normally like 3.8. So a 5-point spread is outside that. Let me just be really clear for the crunchies out there who we love to bits, who normally get us in the clip version, not so much in the live show. I've had people asking me for the whole year, what's going to happen there? And I'm like, said very clearly, I'm not good at making predictions. In fact, normally the opposite happens. So if I say that I think National's genuinely going to win, it probably means Labour will. I think it would be fair to say at the moment, even looking at these polls, that the current incumbent government, the collaboration of the three parties, have their nose ahead at the minute. If you were a betting person, it would be 60-40 or 55-45. And if you even have a look at these numbers, Chewy, I added them up when I first saw them. I'm too slow to do it now. It's something like 48.9 versus 48.3. So, it's even this poll, which shows that big gap, if you use the coalition together, it's as close can be. And I will say that for a couple of reasons, one of which is the irregularity of having a one-term government, although I do acknowledge these guys are operating like a third-term government, so that's got to be taken into account. And maybe, even though they will be punished for the petrol price and for the cost of bananas and eggs, right? They'll be punished for that. There is going to be a counter-argument through this cycle that's been put out by some people, wouldn't be me, but I'm just telling you what's going to be said, that it's better to stick with the safe pair of hands through this sort of war petrol price. That will come out as an argument. So I'm not going to, I don't, pushing that. Yeah, I don't know who's going to win. I don't know what the results are going to be, but my feeling, my gut is the right bloc has their nose ahead at the moment. Do you want any thoughts that, Chewy, before I push play?
Yeah, like I said, National are already pushing the point of view that it's tough times and tough economic times, and you need a good economic hand to steer us through. And I mean, that isn't borne out by reality or numbers or anything like that. But people are going to go, oh yes, National's always been the good economic steward, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And have never looked into it. So.
Well,
yes,
and just for clarity, we don't agree with that, and I'm sure people in the chat aren't suggesting that what I just said is because that's what I think. That's the argument that will come out. That's what the billboards will be saying. It'll basically be a fear tactic, which is, guys, war in the Middle East. It would be a really silly time to change government right now. In fact, you might find that this war in the Middle East helps them when it comes to voting more than it hurts them. Maybe, not sure. Should we keep going?
Yep.
Okay, let's go.
Editor with us this morning. Thomas, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty grim reading for the National Party. The polling period only took in half of the period after Chris Hipkins.
Why? I don't understand. He's at Parliament. Why have they got him sitting in front of not even a green screen, because you can see around his ears is not done well, but a photo of the house? Why don't they just have people in it? Do they think that maybe it's because 60-year-olds watch this thing and they're going to think, oh, look at him, they must be doing Parliament early, and they're all standing very still. Like, what's the point? It's like, and I know why they do it, but when they're in a TVNZ and they throw to the Auckland newsroom, that's like 40 feet, 15 metres that way. But they do that so it looks like we're not all Auckland Central, like we throw to Auckland, we throw to Wellington, but it's like, I've always found that strange. Let's go to the Auckland newsroom. And you might as well do this, as he talks to the person just across there in the Auckland newsroom. Same sort of thing. It's weird.
Wife Jay Paul made those allegations on Facebook, so it doesn't capture that entire period. Nevertheless, last week was probably the toughest week for Labour since perhaps they went into opposition in 2023 because of the allegations that Paul was making against her ex-husband, Chris Hipkins. And yet, despite the poll capturing at least some of that period, Labour has maintained
Interesting point,
grown it slightly, and National continues to trend.
Interesting point that it didn't grab all of that time, but that lots and lots of and who did I see today? I saw some commentary today talking about the right-wing commentators picked up on the Chris Hipkins, Jade Paul thing, but none of the politicians did. And if none of the politicians did, then it has less gravitas. Like Winston didn't. So his flying monkeys didn't necessarily take it on board as much, but the punters did, the Duncan Garners, I'm guessing, and the Annie O'Briens and the Sean Plunketts, they all had a crack. Although Sean Plunkett did sort of defend Chris Hipkins, but certainly Michael Laws on that platform did, but the politicians didn't. And I wonder if that's a difference as to why it hasn't really impacted Chippy in the numbers, at least at the moment, Chewy.
Yeah.
Oh, where's my mouse gone? There it is.
To trend downwards. It does sort of suggest that voters are trusting Labour, trusting Chris Hipkins, and certainly losing their faith in the current coalition. So I think it will make for more grim reading. Of course, you're going to need to wait to see a couple more polls before you get that trend sort of solidified. But certainly, this poll is much more likely.
Got to say as well, 30.8. If they slip any more, they're in the 20s in their second poll. Who did I see today? Someone online. It was a commentator on Twitter. I think 9 of the last 12 polls, Labour's been ahead. So there are trends in there, but it still shows the right bloc being biggest, and that's possibly you very well could have a result at the end of this year where Labour is the biggest party and sitting in opposition. That's feasible in this current climate.
Taxpayers Union Curia poll, which we saw a few weeks ago, then the Talbot Mills poll, which was released last week, which showed National in a slightly better position.
And Luxon's strategy seems to be to kind of hide away.
Sorry, just Chewy, I just don't want you to freak out here because I'm about to say something that might scare you. This is really good commentary by Ryan Bridge. This point he makes here, it's really interesting. It's really good talking about Luxon not being around and then what happens.
And Luxon's strategy seems to be to kind of hide away. I mean, he's either not doing some interviews he was doing previously, or when he does do
Q&A.
interviews or does do press conferences, by his own admission, they're not his strong suit. So is the strategy to sort of pull back a little bit, let the ministers do the talking? And if that is the strategy, does that not create a bit of a power vacuum at the top that people might start to fill?
It's a really interesting observation. It's true, obviously. And it's a really interesting question, like genuinely interesting. Like I was thinking, Chewy, if any other prime minister was performing like this prime minister is, would they have spent a week in the Pacific Islands? Or they've been over and back? I suggest they would have been over and back. He seemed to be having a lovely old time over there for a good length of time. And Nicola Willis is being seen, 9 out of 10 pictures on TV at the moment from National Party is Nicola Willis. And yeah, it's an interesting thought. We'll let the commentator have some thoughts.
Yes, I 100% agree with that assessment. Just if we rewind the clock a wee bit, even pre-COVID, Jacinda Ardern, it was common for her to do much more media than Christopher Luxon is. She would do perhaps something at the end of the weekend to get the Sunday night TV news, which is quite well watched. She'd do the morning broadcast media round. She'd do a full round of press 2 days a week in the House, and then she'd usually be somewhere in the regions on a Thursday to get a bit of media attention on a Thursday. So you'd basically get maybe, what would that be, 4 or 5 days out of 7 in a week where Jacinda Ardern would be public facing.
I think you got to also say that was through the height of COVID. So it might not be just a media, like a media tactic from Labour. It might have also been to do with COVID. But he's still right that she was in front of the cameras a lot.
And quite public facing. Now, Christopher Luxon does tend to do a wee bit less media than that. And that does mean that you get to maybe a Friday or a Saturday, And Christopher Luxon is sort of not really in the news because he hasn't been public facing since perhaps Wednesday lunchtime.
All right, that'll do from them. But we'll just leave these polls up there as well because looking at this, I had some thoughts. But you go first, Jerry. I could hear you winding up there. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, Luxon not being media facing as much as Jacinda, that's called playing to your strengths. Like, Luxon is not good on his feet with this sort of stuff. He's good at repeating talking points that have been workshopped and stuff like that. He's very hard to push off those talking points, but he is not good in front of a camera. He is not authentic. He can't fake it. So then the next best thing is to minimize what he's doing. And I mean, that'd be great if he had some fucking portfolios or some responsibilities, but he doesn't. So it just looks like he is swanning around having a lovely time.
Lovely
like
old
even
time.
his handling of this honor that he was given, you know, that whole cycle again just said what I've always said about the guy. He's got no political instincts.
Yeah.
Like, I did not believe the story that he had asked for that particular honor. I didn't believe that at all. But him and his team panicked to the point of calling them and saying, no, at 3 a.m. to say, oh, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. It's not going to play well with the people back home. Like, that's not how you front foot it either. He's dreadful at all of this.
Okay, so in this poll, in this poll of preferred prime minister, acknowledging it's just one poll, but we'll watch for the trends.
Fucking 13% of people are huffing gas.
Well, so almost forget that 13%, but what you want to do is marry it against 17%. So that's the actual interesting thing, how close Winston Peters is to Chris Luxon. Winston Peters was on with Karen this morning talking about 20% of the election. I mean, if you were ever going to see New Zealand First as a power player rather than a kingmaker, it's going to be this election. And what I wrote down to talk about this was all you need to do is look at places like Australia, where one Australia, and these places around the world. What's it called in the UK? Revive UK or something like that. These Reform UK. These parties are the bounce back from COVID. And Winston Peters is the One New Zealand. Winston Peters is the Reform UK in New Zealand, and he's seeing it. And is it possible that we could be looking at, Chewy, a 25% National Party and like a 20% over there 20% New Zealand First Party? I mean, the party vote's still pretty low, but there's another pretty big truth that happens with most elections. And that is, Chewy, you know this now, we can say it with us, is that the preferred prime minister is more often than not the prime minister. So at the moment, Chris Hipkins, and that's pretty much in all the polls now, is the preferred prime minister. Luxon, is second. The other thing I was going to say is we constantly hear from Mr. Seymour about how terrible they are, yada, yada, and the Fringe Party and the Radicals and the Greens and yada, yada, yada. Well, as of this latest poll, the Greens are significantly bigger than ACT, and in the preferred prime minister status, him and Chloe are the same. So if there was ever time for a poorer, smaller, younger brother, it's ACT right now. You know, they're I don't know quite how to say it, but it's like the dog's bite is worse than their bark. They are... Well, their bark is worse than their bite. It's the other way around, isn't it? Anyway, they talk a quote-unquote good game. Not from me, but they don't stump up with it afterwards, and the public can see it. As many New Zealanders want Chloe Swarbrick as Prime Minister, as want David Seymour, and the Greens are ranking and have for a long time higher than ACT. So, they talk about you should not punch down. Basically, at the moment, the Greens taking ACT apart would be punching down. They're bigger and their leader are as popular. So I think that was a couple of interesting observations from those numbers. What are your thoughts, Drew, before we crack on?
Yeah, I love seeing stuff like this. Like you mentioned, Reform and One New Zealand, and of course MAGA and that sort of thing. It's a resurgence in the West of like really populist, nationalistic sort of stuff. There are
Yeah.
very tight lines of communication between New Zealand First and Reform. Winston has had several meetings over the years with Nigel Farage, who, of course, if you're familiar, is the leader of the Reform
The Brexit
Party,
and the Brexit dude.
also a enchanted toad that lives in a haunted swamp at the same time. But yeah, One New Zealand, One Australia, One Nation, and fucking Pauline Hanson just took out the South Australian elections. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
That party has bubbled away for years and really hasn't shifted the needle. And that result just really surprised me. Reform in the UK, look, I hope they've overcooked it. They've had some success in council elections and that sort of thing, and they just proved that they can't work with each other. But people in the UK are so disheartened with how their government works that they're voting for the extremes. They're voting for Reform. They're voting for Green instead of the establishment parties. Now, of course, their system's very different from ours. It's really hard to move the needle over there. But I think those lines of communication and parties here looking at what's worked in other democracies and bringing it here for better or worse is something to be very concerned about. A resurgent New Zealand First is not good for us.
Right. Speaking of, we'll do some super chats and stuff now, and then we'll get to a resurgent New Zealand First and Winston Peters.
I am, of
the
course,
Nation
always
speech.
happy to see ACT eat shit, though. So long may that continue.
We've lost Graham, by the way, Chewy. Okay, saying rhyme, etc. Time to quit tonight. Chewy, take over. So Chewy, we're losing people. We're losing people. So just
We're
don't
losing you from the sounds of it.
don't agree. Don't agree with me that it was a good question, and then we'll at least save half the audience half the time. Andrew, MAGA NZ is contesting this election and our democracy is on the ballot. Get involved, folks. This isn't a drill. We don't get redos if they win. Gold says 229 days until we vote, and we hashtag ditch the pricks in 26. Adam says kudos for being here on anniversary day. I didn't want to. Chewy made me. That's what it came down to it. He needed to have his nightly fix. Pete says, oh, this is about Nicola Willis. Looks like a third-rate Beastie Boys imitation. Bubba said, you said time and a half, $2, my norm, lol. Share, lol. 3. Sorry. I told you, it makes me uncomfortable. But there you go. And again, it's SC and a half. 8 Vasta, encouraged to enroll to vote 26. Thank you for you guys. Super chat so far. Another one, Vasta. Luxon stuttered his way to a Matai title. Yeah, all right. We're going to look at Winston Peters. Sorry, yes, sorry.
Just real quick, just in the
sorry.
chat, people are saying that South Australian election, be careful of the narrative spin, and you're exactly right. Labor actually won that.
Yeah, that's why I put that. That's exactly what
Labor
I just put
won them. One Nation have bodied the Liberals.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah.
What we're saying is that vibe of politics around the world is growing, and Winston Peters encompasses that in New Zealand. Reform UK, One Nation. MAGA, although MAGA is struggling at the moment with the war, but this has been the post-COVID trend that the authority, for some reason, they like to go with the authoritarians, ironically, and the further right positioning, and the think of ourselves and no one else, and fuck immigrants, and that's where they're going to go. And again, Winston Peters embodies all of those. Sure.
Yeah. And look, I guess we're part of that as well. Well, certainly I am, of that whole, look, if the establishment parties aren't doing it for you, then go further go further left. That's exactly what I've been saying about the Greens, and that works. It works for that. So the guys on the right that weren't happy with the Liberals in South Australia have gone further.
Yeah.
And they've gone to One Nation. And you can see that in the UK as well. That's where reform support has come from, is that people are disillusioned with the Conservatives not being able to do fucking anything.
Well, I think you can see that everywhere. Like in America, you saw that with the Tea Party, and then the Tea Party kind of became part of the establishment and it went MAGA. But the other side in America as well, you've got the squad, the progressive base on the left. All of a sudden, there was more than just Bernie sitting at that table, and the same thing. I guess it's one of the, I don't know if it's the upsides or downsides. One of the realities of MMP is that you can go as far left as you want or as far right as you want, and well, maybe not quite as you want, but quite a long way left and quite a long way right, and still be represented in government. Whereas most countries in the world, I'm thinking, you can sit there and you can vote for the 2% party, but you're never going to get representation. You do in New Zealand. And saying that as well, though, I mean, I don't personally, probably because it's my bias and my ideology, I don't think the Greens are that far left. Like, I just don't think they are. I don't think they're centrist either, but I don't think they're like the way left either, like they would be portrayed by anyone. Basically, anyone right of Labour thinks that they're far left, purple-haired ludicrous who wants to trans all the kids. I don't see that in the Greens myself. Well, I don't see that solely in the Greens, to be fair. Okay. So we've been talking about it, so let's get to it, Chewy. I don't want to freak you out too much, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clips.
Jesus Christ.
Which we probably won't get to all of them, because some of them are like, here's a message to the racists, part 1. Here's a message to the racists, part 2. So we don't know, we'll play everything, but we'll go into it. Right, so this is Winston Peters in Tauranga, because he was pandering. And he was having a State of the Nation. It was an hour and 6 minutes long. About a full 10 minutes, maybe 9-10 minutes of that hour and 6 minutes was talking about the COVID inquiry. The lies were being told about Marsden Point. Labor apparently let Marsden Point shut down. And he slammed the Indian Free Trade Agreement because of letting Indian people into the country. So that's some of the stuff I'm not showing you a lot of tonight. Let's start off, though, with Mr. Peters throwing some shade at his coalition partners.
As for the state of the economy, well, we all know the economy isn't where we should be. We all know that without having to be told, because Kiwis are struggling sometimes with 2, even 3 jobs just to make ends meet. New Zealand first, unlike the rest?
Yeah, thanks to your government. This is the thing. Can I say this as well? It's a bit like the Ryan Bridge thing. Winston Peters is very good at this. I was listening to the whole thing going, shit, you're clever. It doesn't mean it was good or accurate or truthful, but the way he spun stuff, and he knew his audience, and it was clever. Like this, for example, he's brilliant at doing this. He's basically saying the economy sucks and it's got nothing to do with New Zealand first. It's got something to do with our colleagues and, of course, the less, but nothing to do with us. He's very clever at spinning this.
Has constantly said that it will take time to turn our economy around. We've been open, and when other parties at the last election said they could fix it within 3 years, we said back then it was a mistake. We knew the damage done to the economy by the previous Labor government couldn't be undone in just 3 years. And we'll try and explain today what we mean. Forget about all the politics and all the performative behaviour. People have desire to know the truth right here and right now. We know it can be fixed, our economy, but it will take time. And we need to communicate that to New Zealanders to ensure Kiwis understand the challenge and join us on the pathway to economic and social recovery.
Yeah. Chewy, I'm going to fly through some of these. If you want to jump at any stage, you just jump in, okay?
I just want to say, just on this still, that I can smell this video.
I was also, you know what I was also going to do? I was going to make sure we got a nice tight shot of the audience and say something like, spot the diversity, but I think we've passed that. Do we even need to show that? Like, we know who's in that audience. We don't need to show it.
Just to put your finger, like the catering table was soup and Werther's Originals, and that's it.
And that's why he went to.
The room smells dusty.
That's why that's why he specifically went to God's waiting room in New Zealand to make this speech. Tauranga. Okay, so I just wanted to play this because we know, and we've heard from Craig, and we've seen in the writings where the COVID spending went. This mythical missing $30 billion. I saw a very good write-up of it on someone from a meme the other day, which listed all the things, and the point was there's not $30 billion missing. They just don't like what it was spent on. And I think that sums it up perfectly. But just so we're clear, this smells of talcum. That's funny as well. Just to be clear, I want to show you Winston just straight out lying about it and feeding his base.
And that's because our government inherited a disaster of massive over-borrowing and spending, not on production, you remember it? Not on wealth creation, not on employment, not on exports, but purely on consumption. Here today and gone tomorrow. There are people in this room whose grandparents will remember a different time when they set out to change this country and make it one of the greatest countries on earth. I dare say there's some people in this room who remember it themselves.
He's talking about himself.
They borrowed purely for consumption. And we're paying a massive price for that now. Look, we just had the COVID inquiry showing the previous Labor government borrowed $60 billion to deal with COVID, and yet they spent $30 billion of that $60 billion on something else.
And I'm not going to play you the bit because it's a bit of a long bit from Craig Rennie, but remember when it was spelt out, like for example, bailing out Air New Zealand. That was in that other $30 billion. Why did we need to bail out Air New Zealand? Because they were going to go bankrupt because of COVID. It was for setting up being able to learn from home at schools and universities. Why do they set up to be able to learn from schools and homes? Because of COVID. So it's a straight out lie. And like I said, there's a very good meme going around at the moment that I'll try and find that just says there's nothing missing. They just don't like what it was spent on.
Now here's the rub. That's half of the $60 billion wasn't spent on COVID. And you're sitting in this audience and the mainstream media are here today and none of them have told you where the other $30 billion went.
Well, they have.
Yes, they have.
It's incredible that no one knows.
We know. We actually, we all know. In fact, as I was just going to look for this meme, I've popped up on Twitter and I've got the clip there from Craig, but it's 2 minutes. We'll see if we get time later on. Anything from that show you'd like to throw at?
Yeah, when he said, where's the rub, do you think he was talking about Vicks Vapor Rub or rubbing alcohol?
I think some kind of ointment for some kind of old man chafing, I think is what he was looking for. That was just my opinion.
Yeah.
The thing is sometimes...
No, look, this is Winston playing the hits. Half-truths and outright lies to people that just aren't going to bother to check.
Yeah. Oh, Solar Cream's got it right. It's anti-flam. That's probably what it was. That's probably about right, yeah. Been up, his ankles are swollen. He's been up on his feet for too long. No, I can't take the piss. Winston's doing pretty well physically. I mean, like, he's old man enough, but, you know. No, imagine this was Trump. Oh, my gosh. It'd be a nightmare. So this is a 3-part, it's only a minute long, but it's got three parts that I wanted to play for you. Because do you remember before the last election when, you know, National was crowing that the CEOs didn't like Labor, and we suggested to Labor, you guys should own that and say, that's cool, you guys can have the CEOs, we'll have the factory floor workers. Well, they didn't, and they missed a beat. And unfortunately here, Winston has a crack at Chippy, and he's right. Because he basically has a crack at Chippy saying, why the fuck did you go to the Chamber of Commerce to deliver your State of a Nation speech? And he's right. And Peters is right. Why did you go there, Chippy? Why didn't you go to a factory floor? Or why didn't you go to a union or a workers' rights group or someone who's more representative of the Labor voter rather than to the Chamber of Commerce, who would have absolutely voted to the right far more than to the left? And then he goes on to some kind of weird old man rant about starfish, Chewy, and the Greens. You'll get it, you'll hear it. And then, of course, he finishes it up, this 60 seconds up. He gets all this in 60 seconds. He finishes the 60 seconds up with the absolutely who he's talking to with the take our country back. And of course, no one has asked him back from who, but this comes out now. This is the start of it.
Hipkins for a State of the Nation, guess where he went to? The Auckland Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
He couldn't get an audience of his own. Staggering, isn't it? This is the alternative government. But our point is, what happened to our country when politicians thought they could win without having a public meeting? Just dash down to the coast and try and find a starfish.
This is weird.
And put it on the TV that night and you're the Greens. And all the mainstream media there with the cameras.
What?
Don't make a bit of common sense just so that they're concerned about the starfish. Or
What?
eating sausage rolls.
Fuck's sake.
So he's just saying that they want to be government. Look at these guys, these ridiculous guys that make speeches at the Chamber of Commerce, which he shouldn't have done, I don't think. But and he's now saying, I'm the guy, I'm the one who rants about starfish and sausage rolls. We'll just play this last 15 seconds when he gets to his potentially, I think again, this will be one of the taglines for this election.
You imagine Shane if I started eating sausage rolls.
What are you laughing at?
But they've turned politics into something ridiculous. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our country back.
There you go. That got them clapping, Chewy. So you wonder who they're speaking to?
Lots of injured wrists after that.
I'm going to leave that clip. All right. So who is New Zealand First's audience? You've just heard that. Take our country back. Listen to who his audience is.
New Zealand First is proud of our country and our history. We are proud of who we are, our history, our forebears, and what they fought and died for. We're equally proud of our colonial heritage. Did you hear that? We're equally proud of our colonial heritage, traditions and values.
So they like that. They like take our country back. They like colonial heritage, right? This is who he's talking to.
Just as those of us who have Maori in our background are equally proud of that.
A smaller clap, Chewy. Much smaller clap for that one. Just notice that.
What? Are they
Some of
Israel
us
with
are
us?
half Scots and half Maori. Nobody's perfect. Get you a natural suntan and a desire to save money. But we are never going to put down our ancestors, where they're from. We're equally proud of that, and we should be. We are proud of the great things we have in our country. A Judeo-Christian background that's refined our law to be what it is.
This is
a democracy.
This is new. That's new. That's new. Who's he talking to? There's some. So they want to take our country back, and they like their colonial ancestors. Who else is he talking to?
New Zealand First believes in one people, one law, one flag, and all equal under it. We believe.
Not equal.
We believe in a colour-blind state.
You know, the strange thing is, and we've said this before, we actually do as well. And when you guys on the right, you and Seymour, who keep saying this, can start to show us that in evidence when, for example, Māori will be treated equally to Pākehā in the justice system, we'll start listening to you. But until you start there, I don't give a shit about you thinking that this culture should be talked about at the medical school and that one shouldn't. You start with the most important. You start by showing us we're all one under the law and that the law is colourblind by making sure Māori don't get disproportionately convicted of the same crimes that Pākehā commit. Then we'll take you seriously.
If you take all the colours out, you're left with white. So that's couldn't get any more clearer than that. Like this Judeo-Christian heritage and law and government and that sort of thing, that is reform. That very clearly.
Mega.
That's Tommy Robertson.
Yep. Mega.
That's, Western civilization is the best civilization, and colonialism did nothing wrong. Look, that's going to play very well with that audience, but it is a world that is gone now.
Yep.
This is the last gasp.
We'll get to the end of this clip because there's some other people he's talking to. So basically, I struggle to say he's talking to the racists, but I will certainly say he's talking to people who think that a particular ethnicity has supremacy over the rest of the world. That's who he's talking to with this so far.
Now, if you go on the social media today, there are some of these lefty trolls.
The social media. There's only one of them, Chewy. Go on
the
social
Facebooks.
Media.
I would go on the Facebooks, but I can't remember my password. I've been hacked.
Who are saying that I'm going to make exactly that speech about being a colourblind state, as though it's something awful.
You just don't believe it, Winston. And the thing is, it's not that it's awful. It's that you're not doing anything to actually rectify places where, for example, justice isn't colourblind. You're doing nothing about it.
It's amazing. I wish I could find these people and see what they look like. I think this is astonishing to want to stand for one people, one country.
Yes, one people, one country. The other two people he is speaking to, right, there are two more groups. Of course, the other one is he wants to speak to the transphobes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the only party in Parliament with modern Kiwi conservative values, and the only party that is willing to make a stand and fight against this insipid, cancerous spread of the left-wing woke agenda. Who think
consume. If you had woke on your bingo card, it's time to drink. Do it now.
You're going down a rabbit hole if you don't want men in women's bathrooms. So arrogant, they think you're going down a rabbit hole if you get alarmed that men are allowed in women's bathrooms. We believe that everyone is equal, no matter what race, no matter what gender, culture, religion, or creed.
Well, unless they're like Muslims who want to pray publicly in New Zealand. So, like, except for that kind of equality,
they have to be Judeo-Christian, obviously, and they have to be fine with colonialism and the British way of doing things.
Yeah. Other than that, though, we like equality. As long as everyone's the same as us, then we're into equality.
And the same gender, as long as you're the gender that we perceive you to be.
Our party has that as a
foundation
principle. Other parties just use it as a convenient punchline. The woke agenda has been wielded like a Trojan horse over the last decade or more into our education system, our government departments, our schools and universities, our sports systems, and has most notably seeped its way into our political system.
I'll play one more clip now as well, because then there's, of course, the anti-vaxxers, and he does actually say something quite scary in this, and it gets probably the biggest applause break of the whole time. The other thing is, I find it really funny. I'm not playing this as a clip, but he says in this message as well, talks about the left and all they're concerned about is pronouns. I don't know if I've heard anyone on the left talk about pronouns in the last 1 or 2 years, but I'm constantly hearing it from people on the right. So actually, if anyone is enamored with the conversation around pronouns, it's people like Winston Peters. They're the people who go on and on and on and on and on about it. I can't think of a time that I've seen any Green MP stand up and rail against people who don't use the correct miss, ms, zer, x, they, them, he, him. I don't think I've seen it. But at Winston, it's like a tick. It's like every 7th word has to be something about anti-vaxxers. Every 12th word has to be something to do with, we're all one under the sun. And every 20th word has to be to do with they care so much about their pronouns. It's bizarre.
They want to occupy this very unique space where they're both in charge and the victim. You have to do some real mental gymnastics to get to there, and that's the only gymnastics that Winston is still capable of doing.
The perfect example of that, it's not a New Zealand example, but is in America when we hear all the conservatives talking around the war on Christmas, and you turn up to any shop, any mall, any main street, and it looks like Santa's present sack, not just his sack, but his present sack has exploded everywhere. There is, but they constantly, they make themselves the victims. They make the narrative, and then that narrative is picked up by other conservatives, and then it becomes something like it's real. Listen to this one, Joe. This one I actually find really concerning. So he's spoken to the racists, he's spoken to the transphobes, and now he's speaking to the anti-vaxxers. And what he says to the anti-vaxxers, I think it's about the WHO from memory. I find it to be quite terrifying. And this gets the biggest cheer. So listen who's in his live audience and think about who he's speaking to in the camera.
In 2023, we said that we're going to campaign against the WHO regulations where they get to decide without any reference to our national interests. We made it a part of the coalition agreement, and just last week we informed the Director General of the World Health Organization that New Zealand has officially rejected their proposed amendments.
Biggest cheer of the night. We're rejecting the amendments, the research, the practices, the suggestions, the help from the World Health Organization.
If we're going to make decisions about our health, they're going to be made by you,
because you're a farmer and you know what's best for New Zealand's health. What? They're going to be made by you? What?
By you, not a bunch of bureaucrats in Geneva. We made a promise to maintain our sovereign decision-making and to push back on globalist bureaucrats. And we have kept that promise.
And there you go, Chewy. You just got a snapshot of an hour and 6 minutes that I spent in hell watching Winston Peters. But that last one pitching to the anti-vaxxers and the WHO is actually, of all of that hyperbolic bullshit, is actually the one to me that actually seems dangerous. They're basically rejecting WHO, like from a government level, we're not participating. Yeah. That one is dangerous.
One of 12 countries to do so, and I think most telling when Luxon was asked about it when he was over in Samoa, he didn't know about it. Have you seen that footage?
No, I haven't seen that.
You know, there's a compilation of Luxon going, "I'm unaware," right?
Right.
If you just Google like Luxon unaware, it brings everything up. But Luxon was asked by a reporter while he was in Samoa about Winston rejecting that, and he goes, "Oh, you know, there's been some cabinet discussion around that." No, he's done it. Did you know that he's done it? Oh no, I'm actually unaware of that. Like the man is asleep at the wheel. There is no one, like someone from this government comes up, grabs the steering wheel for something, yanks it in a direction, and walks away. The captain is at the other end of the ship doing something completely different. Like it is just baffling that we have to deal with this level of unleadership in a time when the world is in the state that it is. Like this, I would have loved to stand at the doors of that meeting as people went out and go, what was in the World Health Organization recommendations? Yeah. Reject it.
Yeah.
Like you realize that saying that you're against the UN is fucking crazy, right? You know, that was a big part of just staying on top of a global pandemic. Like it's I know he's talking to nutters. I know he's talking to people that just have worms in their brains, but God, I would bash my head against a wall just asking them that question. What is your understanding of this? Yeah. What is the Paris Agreement? Why shouldn't we be part of it? Yeah.
Or why shouldn't we?
Convince me.
Yeah, what's the reason we pull out? What don't you like about it? Cite the things you don't like about it.
What are the consequences of if we pull out of these international agreements? What happens? Is it the fucking land of milk and honey, and Winston will personally come to your door, have a cup of tea, and work out what we do about this whole super COVID that's just arrived? Like, it's nonsense. These people, like, they're not heavy hitters. They're not deep thinkers. They know what they don't like, and they know what they don't understand, and they don't want to put any effort into understanding any of it. So if someone comes along in a nice suit and says you don't need to feel bad about this anymore, they're going to vote for him.
Winston said in this speech at some stage that he'd been doing this for 5 decades. And even though we joke about how long he's been around for it, I thought about it and I went, actually, you know what the truth is? He has been in Parliament, in the Parliament building at some stage over the last 6 decades, because he's been in there in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, the teens, and now the 20s. So there's been some part of the last 6 decades that Winston Peters has been in that parliamentary building. Now, all of those people who vote for Winston or vote for ACT, who talk about, they've never had a real job, they're lifetime politicians, they went from student politicians to politicians, please stop. Please stop. 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, teens and 20s, Winston Peters has spent time in Parliament. Please stop.
I'm just going to highlight this comment because, for Christ's sake, ignore Peters. He's dangerous. That's absolutely the reason why you shouldn't ignore him.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there's always the temptation of like, well, you just don't highlight the bad stuff and you're giving a publicity. If you don't know what your opposition is up to, you are at a disadvantage.
Can I just say as well, being real realistic here, he's not going to be the next Prime Minister. But if he ever was, it's going to be this election. I don't think it's possible for New Zealand First to get up and over national. But you are looking at the person who could well have enough power to not just be the kingmaker getting one or two things through. He could be driving the next economy at the end of this year. What are you talking about? How can we ignore who's probably going to be, should they win, I'll say, the Deputy Prime Minister next time around, and there's a 5% chance Prime Minister? What are you talking about? We just pretend he wasn't there, and then what? What should we do for all of this year as we're trying to inform our audience about the news of the day? Well, in the news of the day, this happened to the Greens, and this happened to National, and this happened to ACT, and nothing else on the right. What are you talking about? Of course we've got to highlight it. Anyway, no offence, but, let's get to some super chats and then we'll go on to Christopher Luxon on Hosking this morning. Laura just says, lies, lies, and more lies, and lies on top of lies. Pete says, Winston's been in Parliament since the Carter. How the fuck does anyone view him as anti-establishment? He is the establishment.
100%.
He
will argue against what past Winston did. Like, and his followers will go, yeah, that's fine. That tracks.
Yeah, 100%. Sounds like Wheezy from Toy Story says, Wahiki. 15mm Gustavus. It's like a sea of milk. I think that's the audience we're talking about to Winston. Laura again. Winston has gooner boomer brain rot. Citizen Gold. Modern Kiwi conservative values. Bullshit. This is imported from Trumpistan. Yep. That's fair as well. Another one from 15mm. Take the country from whom you're in charge. 100%. That's why they're dog whistles and XLDL. One people, one nation. Except for those we don't like. We're equal. Except for the woke, trans, etc., etc. You got it. 100%. You got it going on. Anything else here in the chat you want to get to, Chewy? Any other? Ooh.
No.
Yuck, bad, moist.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yuck, bad, moist. Ooh, yuck, bad, moist.
If you just wanted to put yourself in the space of what that auditorium sounded like when everybody was leaving, you go outside and grab a fistful of two fistfuls of dried leaves and just rub them together. That is the sound of everybody exiting for the car park. Drier, crumblier.
Okay. All right. It's probably only fair, seeing we have, I don't know how you say it, been a little bit mean, maybe, is the truth, towards wee Nicola, that we get to show.
Shaped head. That's the only. It's just offset. They lay her on her side too much as a child.
To show her her big day out. Big girl had a big day out over the weekend. Oh, it's like Trump in the truck. Got to toot the whistle. Got to cosplay and dress up and that. Cameron Bagrie, well-renowned economist, shares some thoughts in contrary to Ms. Willis's thoughts around the fuel supply. We're not going to watch this whole thing, but let's just give her 60 seconds or so to see what she was talking about over the weekend.
We are confident right now that ships are still scheduled to arrive in the coming days.
How can anyone be confident with their helmet on that much of an angle? Like, if your helmet is on that much of an angle, you have no right to be confident about anything.
Several ships are scheduled.
Sorry.
I also we are confident that there are ships that are scheduled. Well, yeah, you can just pick up a schedule and go, yeah, here's the ships.
Good point.
Are you confident that the scheduled ships are going to arrive as scheduled?
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
Maybe a little bit of wordplay there.
in the coming weeks, and that remains something that we're confident of. As we look to the future, we can expect that fuel importing companies will continue to secure orders for more fuel for the months ahead. Were they to face delays in those arrivals or disruptions, they would try and source fuel from elsewhere to meet demand here in New Zealand. And we as a government are working alongside them to consider whether there are extra things we can do to support that effort, whether that might be widening the range of fuel specifications for fuel that they can import into
Which is what they announced today. We'll get to that.
New Zealand, and as another set of measures, whether we would need to consider anything else in New Zealand to prioritise who fuel goes to and when.
I spoke to somebody on the way here who was quite angry.
I mean, I don't know if we need too much more. It's the we'll just leave that as a nice freeze frame in the background there. You get the gist. They're talking about and I think Shane Jones was up there as well, wasn't he? You get the gist. They're looking at the big tanker over the background, etc., 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 giving all the good words and stuff. Let me just give you a bit of information now. Nicola Willis says we have enough fuel for now. Economists are sceptical it will stay that way. Economist Cameron Bagrie said, we'll go to a start. At the press conference at Northland's Marsden Point on Sunday, Willis said ships carrying fuel to the country were, quote, continuing to turn up as expected. Cameron Bagrie was not so confident. He said that those ships en route from Asian refineries had passed the Strait of Hormuz before Iran blocked the waterway. Iran has effectively blocked the strait where around 20% of the world's oil passes through. The problem is ships have gone through the Strait of Hormuz for a number of weeks now. So no more ships are going to be arriving at the Asian refineries. If they don't get crude oil, they cannot refine product. The refineries in Korea and Singapore will not be at 100% production unless they can magically conjure up alternative sources of crude supply, he said. Article goes on to say if they were able to source from America or elsewhere, that would be possible, but he was skeptical, Cameron says. If the refineries start rationing product orders, it's like, well, who do you look after and who misses out? He was most concerned about New Zealand running short of diesel, which we use a lot more than petrol. Willis echoed that concern, signalling the country would be in trouble if we ran short of diesel, which was used for freight and heavy machinery. If we don't have diesel, it would affect thousands of jobs, she said. The government was still looking for a solution to relieve fuel costs for Kiwis that could be implemented. When asked if that would include a fuel tax decrease, she said official advice indicated that it would not help those who need it most. Bagrie was also worried about other knock-on effects of the crisis, the impact of the oil shock. Odds are we will have a negative GDP quarter for the June quarter of 2026. So we're going to hit the reverse button. That's what happens when you jam fuel prices way up by an awful long way. Your economy grinds to a halt. And that's pretty much what he had to say. But yeah, no comprendo. No, don't like your numbers. Nicola Willis, and I said this earlier, they've been talking now for 2 weeks that we've got 50 days worth of fuel. I don't know what that hasn't gone to 40 or 30. Because it's been 2 weeks now that we've still had 50 days worth of fuel. We're going to play the One News story shortly about this whole fuel crisis in a minute. And I think they say 49.9 days or something. I don't know how they get the 0.9, but that's what they've got going on. So there you go, Chewy. There's at least an economist, and I'm sure there's more than one, kind of going, don't know if you should have all the confidence in the world that you're spouting, Minister and government. Any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I don't believe this at all. I think this has been an absolutely disastrous roadmap of crisis management and managing the public's perception of what's going on. You can't just sit there and go, it's business as usual, but it's also potentially very bad. Like, they are building shocks into the system rather than smoothing the bumps out. Like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong for New Zealand here. Experts on what's happening in the Gulf and military advisors said this looks uncontrolled. Like, it's not like America has a clear set of goals here. It changes literally from day to day. So how can they keep a cap on this whole thing? yeah, we're a small country, far away from anywhere. Like, if they have to, like, if South Korea goes, oh, we've got New Zealand IOU for some fuel here, we've got a contract, is it better to just go, sorry, we'll make it up to you later?
But what if they also go, hang on, but we have a contract, they have a contract with us. But remember then when we had a contract with them and they cancelled that with a text message? Maybe these guys don't deserve our loyalty quite as much. Ferries, anyone?
Yeah. So I don't think that there's enough planning. It doesn't seem very proactive. It seems very reactionary. And I think there's also, it's still short-term crisis management.
Yeah, true.
It's not, hey, look, we need to be realistic. We are going to be dealing with this through the election, through Christmas, into the new year, most likely. We need to change how we're doing things. We need to have those conversations now.
What we're going to do now is we'll play the story from One News because that talks in more detail because there was some information given out today. And we'll wrap up the show with playing some stuff from Christopher Luxon on the Herald this morning. And sorry, not the Herald, sorry, ZB this morning. And what's really interesting this morning is that Christopher Luxon, and I'm going to say couldn't, I'm not going to say wouldn't, give specifics as to how they were going to help. I don't think they know. And even now that they've made an announcement around fuel that is acceptable in Australia will now be acceptable here, that's a headline solution, but they're not saying, and so 3 tankers will be here in 3 weeks with that fuel. So I don't believe they know what to do yet. And we've already talked about they don't have the capacity to pull trigger on immediate things like free public transport or like, 30% off fuel via excise tax because they actually don't have any money to give away. I think Nicola Willis might actually say it maybe in this conversation. I've seen it in one of the conversations today. She says, we can't afford that. And why can't they afford it? Well, billions of dollars to landlords, billions of dollars in tax cuts, and billions of dollars to big tobacco. So she's right. They can't afford it, which is why they won't cut it. But what they're not then saying is, why can't they afford it? And that's because of the decisions that this government made in the first 12 months of this term. That's why they can't afford it. So they can't afford it. The money's not there, but they are the ones responsible for the money not being there. One News tonight.
Fuel that meets Australia's specifications is to be sold here as the Iran conflict continues.
See what I mean? It's a headline. But no as when, no how, no nothing. If it meets Australia's standards, we'll take it. What about Australia? They probably want that fuel. Nothing else is going to be covered off, just a headline.
News to spark soaring global oil prices. But the move for now won't allow for so-called dirty fuel with higher sulphur content, which has been refined across the ditch.
Russia.
The latest stock figures show there's a touch under 50 days worth of petrol here, and on the way, 45 and a half days of diesel and almost 45 days worth of jet fuel. But skyrocketing prices at the pump are already hitting Kiwis in the back pocket. Senior political reporter Benedict Collins has more.
Hey, Chill, you know how he told us about that farmer and he had tens of thousands, and we were a bit confused whether it was like, is that 10,000 a month or Exhibit A? How much on fuel per day?
40,000 litres a week.
Well, have a listen to this guy. He talks about per day, the extra it's going to cost.
Britain's a long way from the Middle East, but the effects of the conflict are being felt hard here.
In 10 days, the fuel price has gone up $1.20, $1.30 for us, which is equivalent of $10,000 to $12,000 a day during.
Did you get that? An additional $10,000 to $12,000 a day for these guys. $10,000 to $12,000 a day. 5 times 12, that's 60. 5 times 10, so they're spending an extra $50,000 to $60,000 a week on fuel than they were 10 days ago.
All of these options that everybody's talking about, decarbonising our fleet and our machines and that sort of thing, that is long-term thinking. These guys cannot go out and replace a $400,000 harvester or tractor or that sort of thing tomorrow.
That's what it is. Yep.
You know, and as much as I sort of want to go, why did no one see this coming? This comes down to the government and that sort of thing as well. Like our reliance there on our agricultural society is on diesel. It lives or breathes on diesel. That's all of our food. That's all of our transport. And we're seeing now how vulnerable that is.
Probably a really good time to also mention again Chewy Electric Cherry. Electric Cherry, Mike Casey it is, isn't it? Mike Casey, who won a sustainability news, I think it was New Zealander of the Award Sustainability Prize last week. I've been in communication with his team to try and get him on. It would be really good. This is the perfect time to get him on. How have you done it with your farm to not have to be, now remember, I'm going to say this again, to be spending an additional, right? So you got me, it's not that they're spending $10,000 to $12,000 on fuel, it's an additional $10,000 to $12,000 on fuel a day. Let's keep going with this conversation. Well, maybe I'll go back just a few seconds just so we can get it all. Here we go. Oh, we'll go there.
For us, which is equivalent of $10,000 to $12,000 a day during maize harvest, which we just start tomorrow.
The flow-on effects of the war are hitting the whole district.
How farmers can afford to keep running when all the costs, their fertiliser costs, their contractors' costs, and what their returns are not that great, coming back at them, it's hard for everyone.
The price of diesel has risen by nearly 75% in the last month. 91 petrol in comparison has risen 33%. And diesel plays an integral role in driving the economy, powering everything from tractors and freight trucks to fueling the forestry and fishing sectors, and mining and construction.
So fuel security is without doubt the most pressing issue, particularly for diesel, which is critical to freight and many of our key industries here in New Zealand.
Diesel keeps our economy flowing. The elasticity between petrol and diesel is vastly different. Any suggestion that we should be casual or insouciant about the supply of diesel means we're selling our economy short.
What was that word?
You go back. Here we go.
Casual or insouciant about the supply of be casual or insouciant about the casual or insouciant about the casual or insouciant about the casual or insouciant about the.
All right, chat. Look it up. Who's the first? Definition, please.
Should be casual or insouciant about the supply of diesel means we're selling our economy short.
We're now aligning our fuel standards with Australia's to widen our.
Let's stop then. It's word of the day with Chewy.
I love it when Shane Jones does this. He's not always successful. He did this also when he's talking about the fisheries today. He used the wrong word. But yes, insouciant is a real word, showing a casual lack of concern. Now, is it a word that normal people use in normal conversations? No. But this is Shane Jones. If he's not using a $15 word that nobody understands, then he's not on, is he?
All right, let's keep going.
Options.
Simple example, if a vessel is coming, a long-range vessel which probably carries 120 million litres, should such a vessel be on its way to Australia, then we would have the ability to also benefit.
So this is what it doesn't seem clear. So there's this vessel heading to Australia, I assume because Australia wants the fuel, but now we can benefit from it. So do we realistically think that Australia is going to go, oh, you can keep going and take a third of your fuel to New Zealand now? Or are we going to have our Navy out there stealing tankers and bringing them back to New Zealand? Like with our Navy, both of our dinghies are going to be out there in the harbour holding signs that say Australia that way, which is really to New Zealand, and they're not going to know. Like if there is a fuel crisis, in what world do we live that Australia is going to choose to give up some of that tanker coming to them to then come to us? This is what I'm saying. It makes no sense.
They get their tanker, literally 5 minutes after it's unloaded, there's a little knock on Australians' door. There's Shane Jones. Can I borrow a cup of Russian oil, please? Yeah, look, that makes sense. Honestly, I think, as much as I'm taking the piss, that's kind of what they're doing, is that they're setting an emergency standard. I don't like it because it is, if they're talking about fuel with a high sulfur content, they are talking about Russian oil.
Well, they're not yet. They've said that clearly. It's not the highest sulfur unit. There's obviously an in between. That's how I at least read it. But I still want to say
that can be hidden though, and I'm just like,
okay.
oh no, we're getting Indian oil. Well, guess what? India is literally one of the few places that is still getting oil from Russia.
But the question still is,
just something I'm aware of,
Minister. In what planet does Australia choose to give up some of the fuel in a worldwide fuel crisis to flick it on to New Zealand? Like, how? And the other thing is, okay, so let's not say Australia. So Shell or BP, what are they going to go? Yeah, fine, that country over there, that we'll send it to them. I don't see how that's going to work. And like I said earlier, they don't have a solution. I think they don't know. They've got an idea, but they've said at no point how this idea then gets put into practice.
On such a vessel.
With petrol prices spiking, motorists are looking elsewhere.
Across the country, demand for electric vehicles has surged in recent weeks.
The government's looking to boost our undersized EV charging network by providing $50 million in interest-free loans to 2 providers.
So this is really interesting, and I know what Chippy's about to say because I've seen it, but today I put this tweet out. Let me bring it in, enter stage left. The government won't offer EV rebates as they say the wealthy will benefit. Yet today they announced the doubling of EV charges. So who will benefit from the doubling of EV charges according to them? People who own EVs, who they define as the wealthy. I see what you did there. On top of that as well, it does feel a little bit chewy, like paying for surgeries all over again. Nothing to do with ChargeNet or those guys they're all doing God's work, but they're giving interest-free loan to private business to fulfill a promise that they made at the election and haven't come through on yet. So whilst, please, for the love of the electrical gods, send some charges south of Dunedin, we need them. This just all stinks a little bit to me of headline grabbing. Where's the 10,000 you promised us?
100%.
And who are you providing for? Because you guys don't want to give rebates, free money to the wealthy people with Teslas, but you're going to get $50 million spent on the wealthy people with Teslas so they can drive around more easily. That there's a mixing of the messaging there, Chewy.
Yeah, I saw this charger announcement and I'm just like, oh, cool. Too. Like when they made that pre-election promise of the amount of money that they were allocating and the amount of charges that was going to get, I knew that was fucky right from the get-go because the math didn't math.
Yeah,
know how
10,000.
much these charging units cost, and they were never ever going to get close to that. But that was the promise that they made. So now there's a fuel crisis, and they've suddenly remembered it, but they're hoping that you're not remembering the numbers.
Wow. We don't forget the numbers, and we'll keep going now. Chippy doesn't forget the numbers either.
At the moment, in New Zealand, over the last 7 months, there are about 20 points a month going into the ground. ChargeNet alone will be putting 40 points a month into the ground when we reach the peak of the program.
It's aiming for another 2,500 public charges in the next 5 years.
We have some of the lowest number of public charges per head of...
Yes, we know. We know, Bish. You told us this before the election. And you were going to fix it. We know all these things because you've already promised and pleased to fix that.
Lowest number of public charges per head of population in the OECD, and we want to change that.
The National Party promised New Zealanders 10,000 EV charges. The announcement they made this morning doesn't get anywhere close to that.
Nevertheless, the extra EV charges may come in handy in the face of soaring fuel prices.
Yes. So there you go, Chewy. That is the story on One News around that. I love the idea, and we probably said before the election, let's find out some policies that we like of this opposition party at the time, and one of them would have been the working on the EV infrastructure, which then they cancelled, and now they're trying to get credit again for doing 1 quarter. It's a little bit like the let's find $1.4 billion worth of savings in the health system, and now let's put 25 million back in over over the winter period. It's a bit the same. It's like, we're going to give you 10,000 more chargers. Hey, how's 2,500 that we give a loan to this private company to then do it and then pay it? You know, it smacks of all that bullshit that we smell often with these guys.
Yeah. Like, at its heart, I am not opposed to a program that offers interest-free loans to fix an infrastructure hole.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
It is a good thing. Are there any conditions with it? You know, how quick do they have to pay it back? Does the government have any insight in going, hey, look, you just can't drop all of these charges in Auckland, as an example. You have to put them in more rural areas or improve the rural connectivity. Because, like, when you talk to rural people and go, well, have you considered EVs? You know, their commutes back to town or whatever can be enormous. And there's like classic example, Balclutha has 150 kilowatt charger. It's in a warehouse car park, right? So if you were in that area and you go into town and there's someone else there, you're waiting another half an hour, 40 minutes. Are you going to put up with that? Like, they need to look at the places that are underserviced.
Yeah.
Not necessarily where the population is.
Yeah, we did exactly that. We're looking at going into Southland over Easter, and we have just become a 2 EV household, and we're looking at my wife's car, which hasn't got the same sort of range I did, but looking at where the EV charges were between Dunedin and sort of Western Southland, it's like, maybe we'll have to take my car, because it just feels like it shouldn't be a problem, but it is. It is, and it shouldn't be. Like I don't know why we'll say, and we'll be fair, governments and governments previous have ignored the system south of Dunedin, but they need to sort it out. Like Cromwell sorted it out, Queenstown sorted it out, Dunedin sorted it out, and then there's a lot of gap. You know, there's a lot of gap around Southland and Central Otago.
Yeah. Chad is wanting me to point out to you, Pat, that Meridian and ChargeNet are majority government owned as well. So that would factor in. Like, there needs to be a thing where they're going, there are places that are underserved.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But
totally.
yeah, you can't, but the takeaway here is, yes, interest-free loans for infrastructure thing, cool, great, perfect. It's what a government should do. What I don't appreciate is the pre-election lie that never stacked up.
Yeah.
And then trying to blow smoke up my ass with a smaller number and saying it's the same, actually. You know, and the timing is suspicious.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, some super chats that have come in before we go to our last story. The reason it's still 50 is we had tankers on the way, so despite the increased sales, it hasn't affected the stockpile. Those shipments will slow now. Well, yes, I don't think that's right, because at the start they were saying, including those that were traveling to us, we have 50 days. That means all the stuff that's been sold in New Zealand comes out of that, because it was very clear, because even I think it was on Q&A with Jack Tame when Nikki No Boats was there, she said 50 days within the boundaries of New Zealand. And Jack went, well, not within the boundaries of New Zealand. She went, oh, no, 50 days in New Zealand and on the ships coming to it. So that was a total of 50 days. That means if they've sold 10 days out of New Zealand, that means it should only be 40 days. So agree to disagree, Excel dear. I'm probably wrong. I normally am, but agree to disagree. Kiwi says, could Iran block our supplies due to Five Eyes? Singapore, geez, that's an interesting point. Singapore, South Korea might make a choice between us and their supply lines. Just a thought. Yes, actually, if Iran is attacking people in the Middle East who are aligned to America allies, if you will, we're not America's ally. But that Five Eyes could be taken on board or something.
Let's talk about that. Okay. Because Luxon waded into this and put our name to a criticism of Iran attacking civilian shipping.
Yeah.
But there's no mention of America and Israel kicking this whole fucking hornet's nest over. So we're looking like we're siding with the big boys. And then Winston Peters, our elder statesman, is going, well, yeah, we could contribute military members to opening the strait. What the fuck, old man? let's stay well clear of this.
Let's get to it now, because that's exactly the next clip we're going into, because Luxon was on with Mike Hosking this morning. They spent a bit of time talking about, will the people of New Zealand blame Luxon for the results of the war? Yes, they will. Typically what happens is, if it's hard at the grocery store or it's hard at the petrol pump, the incumbent government will get the blame for that, even if it's something beyond their control. But apparently, Chewy, if it's hard because of a global pandemic, no, then it's not our fault.
It's a different crisis.
Different crisis. So what will happen is they will get their blame. The conversation went on to talk about exactly what you've just said, condemning of the actions of Iran. And I'm going to pause it at one stage, because Mr. Luxon says very clearly why they're condemning Iran, because it has a technical definition around what they're doing, and we'll pick up on that when we get to it.
That in a moment. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Mark Rutte, overnight NATO secretary, he's responding to Trump's fury over the lack of NATO support and general global support, especially around the Strait. But he says, quote, "Good news, we're coming together to implement his vision and making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is free. Other nations involved in this are Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Bahrain and the UAE." Are we?
And just so you're clear, when the letter that Hoskins is talking about says his ideas, he's talking about Trump's. So Trump's vision, Trump's ideas to sort it out.
Involved in this?
No, so what he's referencing is two things. One is there's a statement that we signed up for on Friday night, which is essentially like-minded countries like ours saying, hey, listen, and the reason we signed up for it is Kiwis are paying under pressure with the fuel pump, get it? Why is that happening? It's happening because the boats, there's 3,500 ships that can't get through the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. Why is that happening? Because the Iranians are then attacking those ships, which is actually against something called the freedom of navigation and the rules-based sort of system. So we've come...
Okay, we'll just go back to get that last little bit there, Chewy, as well.
The rules-based system.
No. He's got
the
a specific
system.
Let him get this in exactly. That's what we're going to talk about.
1,000 ships that can't get through the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. Why is that happening? Because the Iranians are then attacking those ships, which is actually against something called the freedom of navigation and the rules-based sort of system.
Freedom of navigation, right. So let's talk about that, eh? So he's right, of course, right, that it is illegal to do that based on that law. But what we do not hear from Mr. Luxon, and what we do need to call him on and challenge him on, is when you attack a sovereign country that there is no imminent threat from, that's also called something. That's called a war crime. And that's against all sorts of conventions, including things like Genevan ones. And it's just particularly difficult to swallow. And sure, I saw you put this up on your Facebook over the weekend. This man who has committed our country to speak out on the freedom of navigation law being broken by condemning the actions of Iran, but refuses to speak out on the war crimes and the breaking of the Geneva Convention that Israel and the US are speaking on. And I get, Jerry, that's probably why you were foo-fooing over the weekend, but we've got more of this clip to play, but your thoughts first, sir.
I've never seen someone less equipped to deal with an international situation. Like, he's fallen on the wrong side of history. He's very clearly got the mindset that America is our ally, and we should obviously side with them because the other choice is a terrible regime in Iran. But there's also a stage where you can stand back and go, you're both being dicks. Can you stop? Maybe they're attacking civilian shipping because you attacked them out of fucking thin air.
I said this at the start of this whole conflict. And I think I've received a message from someone in the maybe I'll read it out. Because it's a talk point. So this has just been, we've been tagged in this on Twitter. And it says, those cowardly Western pundits who say the Iranian government and its leaders are evil, but I oppose war, are no better than Trump and are probably just as evil and just as cowardly. They know very well that the real evil lies in the West, not Iran. They are not heroes. So this has been, we've been tagged in that. I don't know whether that means that's a commentary on, that was when we were talking to Russell Norman about how does Greenpeace kind of find that line between not overtly supporting the regime, but also coming out against the war. I think that this is very easy to find where we are at, because we've just been watching it for the past 3 years in Gaza by going, the people that are impacted here are the innocent civilians. No, the Iranian regime does not deserve our support. No, the actions of Hamas does not deserve our support. But that doesn't mean, so therefore Israel in particular, but in this case Israel and the US, go for it. Just go and bomb and kill all those civilians as well. Especially when we now hear, and apparently Trump is behind the scenes admitting it, that Netanyahu got him into this. Netanyahu said the same thing to, I think, to Bush and to Obama and to Biden, that they're going to go in, whether they like it or not. And all of those guys went, nope. He says it to Trump, and Trump goes, well, we better come with you. Right? So that's who's running the Western world at the minute. That we can go, the actions of this regime, and I don't use words like evil and stuff like that person has done, it's emotive, are illegal, are war crimes in and of themselves when they're attacking people in the street and disappearing people, are human rights violations. And now let's talk about the people living in, the innocent civilians living in the apartment buildings who are being flattened by Israel. Let's talk about the girls who are in school being killed by the US. Those are always the people who miss out when you've got two leading groups, be it the IDF and Hamas, or be it the Iranian, leadership, the regime, and Donald Trump. The people who always get hurt in the end are the innocent people who have no control and no power over this whole thing. And to me, it doesn't seem any difference in this, Chewy.
That's actually incorrect, Pat. Western weapons are so good that they only kill bad guys.
Sorry, I forgot we got that note the other day. So I apologize, and I withdraw and apologize.
If you doubt what I'm saying, you can ask the millions of dead Iraqis.
Yeah, they'll give you an
all
answer.
Bad.
And the hundreds of thousands of dead Palestinians in Gaza, I'm sure they'll put that and go, yes, I was bad and I deserved that apartment building to be dropped on me. All right, so this is still talking about the actions of Iran, and he is happy to condemn the actions of Iran for blocking a strait, but he has refused to condemn the illegal actions of Israel and the US. And as I guess you're kind of hinting at, Chewy, he's putting us, New Zealand, in the sights of the same as who Iran is. I'm not suggesting Iran's going to send a missile this way, but if we're then saying these sorts of things, then we're similar to the groups that are supporting Trump overtly, or who are his allies, America's allies.
Kiwis are paying under pressure with the fuel pump, get it? Why is that happening? It's happening because the boats, there's 3,500 ships that can't get through the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. Why is that happening? Because the Iranians are then attacking those ships, which is actually against something called the freedom of navigation and the rules-based sort of system. So we've come out to condemn Iran for that and to say that has to stop.
So that's all we're doing.
Yeah, the second part of what they're alluding to is then there is discussion around multilateral efforts to how you might go about doing that. We have not been asked, we have not been engaged on any of that, and obviously any future decisions around that, we'd have to have a pretty big discussion at Cabinet. So
notice he's not saying we won't be involved militarily. He says we have to have a pretty big conversation around that, which is a little bit concerning as well.
I think that's getting well ahead of itself in terms of our focus is on standing up. Often people say, well, we've got to stand up for the rules-based system. Well, we are. This is an example of how
Why haven't we stood up for it based on the Geneva Convention then and the war crimes happening? Why haven't we stood up on that? We've stood it up because so basically what you're saying, Mr. Luxon, is because our petrol prices are standing up, are going up, we're going to stand up for that. But because innocent civilians are dying in Iran, we're not going to stand up for it for that. It's like...
Well, no, specifically, we're going to stand up for those Kiwi battlers that are paying at the petrol pump. Not for any other moral reason.
Yeah.
Not for any moral judgment for that sort of thing. But I think we're on the wrong timeline.
Okay.
You just got to remember that Luxon is very, very slow.
Right. So it's 6 weeks from now.
It took him a long time, probably with crayons and pieces of paper and maybe blocks, working out that what Russia did was illegal and bad and wrong. Took him a long time to come out and say that. He still hasn't really worked that out for Gaza. So that's probably coming soon.
Couple of years.
Then 2029, he'll work out what was bad about this.
All right. Well, so we'll try to get to the end of the clip this time.
Do it with like-minded countries to say, hey, listen, Iran, why are you lashing out at countries that have got nothing to do with the strike on you? That is US and Israeli action.
Well, because they're desperate.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but we've got to call that out.
Bases are there,
The key thing I'm really focused on, Mike, to be honest, is that security of supply. That's really what we've got to maintain. We're in quite good shape, even relative to the Australians, frankly. We've got higher levels of stock cover. All our ships came through over the last week, which is good.
Do you have anything new on that? Because I asked Nicola about this on Friday. She didn't seem to know. Post the ships on the water coming here...
Can I ask you really, this is a bitchy question. Does anyone else feel like the hanging of the suit jacket over the screen behind him is one of the bigger dick moves in this whole thing? I've noticed it before. Or is it just me? Am I being petty?
Is that
just
his
me?
jacket or is it?
Yeah, it's his suit jacket. Yeah, it's Hosking's jacket. No, it's Hosking's suit jacket.
Why would you do that?
Because, he's cool. He's cool.
I get all of that. Beyond that next round of contracts, are they in? And do we know those ships are coming?
We haven't heard any advice that they're not coming. So, when we talk to the oil company...
Can't prove a negative, Mr. Luxon. Sorry about that, son.
Is daily, they are still of the view that they're getting their orders coming through. You would have seen overnight, I'd see the Japanese reckon they've got some ships through. Yep. We obviously get our supply out of South Korea, which is good, about 40...
It would be kind of cooler, though, Chewy, if that jacket was Luxon's, because that means he was wearing a jacket that he hung up, and under his jacket there was another jacket. So that would be... I would back off then. I would say that's a pretty cool move. That it's his outer jacket.
Lest we forget the T-shirt over a business shirt.
True. It's been there before.
About 45%. We get about 30% out of Singapore.
Yep.
I'm talking to the Singaporean Prime Minister in the next wee while, and they've all reassured us that they've got good supply.
So beyond the 49 days.
Yes. But having said all of that, I'm wanting our system to think about, okay, that's great, but you're certainly going, surely, is there going to be a shortage of crude at some point coming through that strait? Because even if it comes through and it flows through and it's released tomorrow, there must be some lag effect in the system. And so now those refineries in South Korea and Singapore will be doing everything they can to actually secure supply out of the US. There's a couple of other sources that they can go to around the world.
Well, they're Russian and Iranian.
Russian, but we won't be going there. We don't.
Why not?
We don't need to go there at this point in time. The refineries, they will make the calls as to where they can get their sources, but there's even, I was reading about a source out of the UAE that actually they can seem to get some oil out of there too. But that's what we're monitoring. That's what we're really interested in, is that we have to start to think about future scenarios where we hope none of that happens, but we have to plan for that.
Okay.
Yes. Clip number 1, Chewy. I've got another one to play as well. And the next one's interesting because it's talking about what's going to happen. You lost your headphones. Chewy's lost his headphones. That's all right.
I'm back now.
All right. So you got any comments on that before we play this last clip for the night?
These two talking about this stuff gives me no reassurance.
Yeah.
It makes me more panicked than anything else.
Yeah. Let's get to the last clip then, shall we? So this is actually interesting because this is one point where Hoskins sort of doesn't let him walk away. Sometimes Hoskins lets him walk away. This one, he doesn't. I now can't look at that screen without seeing the suit jacket. That's the only thing I see when I look at that screen. And he wants to know, we all want to know, but Hoskins asking the question, what specifically are we going to do? How are we going to bring relief specifically? And although they've made that announcement today, which they think is an announcement to help, about the fuel at the same kind of grade as Australia accepts, that hasn't answered anything specifically, because it's not then saying, and we've got half a tanker coming on May the 1st. We've booked it in. So that's just a headline. So Mike Hosking is asking for specific solutions. And I'm going to say, I'm betting that Mr. Luxon doesn't have the answer. Sometimes politicians won't give the answer because there's an announcement coming up or they're still I don't think they have a clue. I really don't think they've got an answer to this problem. I think they don't know what to do, and I hear that in this answer.
What are you looking at the moment in terms of help? Is it time, or is it a dollar amount in terms of the litre? What triggers it?
Yeah, so I think there's...
So by time he means we've only got 10 days of fuel left, and by dollar a litre it means when it gets to $3.60. So they're the time versus dollar a litre.
Dollar amount in terms of the litre, what triggers it?
Yeah, so I think there's a series of, so first and foremost, there's two issues to manage. One is the supply, because if we don't manage the supply, that'll be the biggest single impact on jobs and income. Fine for now, but we have to think about scenarios where we may or may not have the fuel that we want, and therefore...
But that would be rationing.
That would be the steps that we'd work our way through our national fuel plan.
Not worry about...
So actually at the moment, Hosking's giving Luxon answers as to what they can do. Luxon doesn't have any. Because at the moment, the only solution has been from Mike Hosking, which is rationing. Nothing else yet.
That's
the actual dollar help, allegedly, that's coming.
Yep.
What's the trigger?
Well, what we're thinking about, I won't go into the detail, but what we're trying to think about is that...
I won't go into the details because we don't have any.
We cannot make the mistakes we made before with COVID, which was economically irresponsible. We end up spraying cash all over the place, lots of short-term gain, massive long-term pain. So we've got to be responsible economic managers of that.
Cutting some of the excise tax off petrol is not spraying money all over the place. You could do it tomorrow. Sure, if you don't want to give handouts, whatever would you, that's fine, whatever. But you could do that tomorrow.
Lots of short-term gain, massive long-term pain. So we've got to be responsible economic managers of that. Having said that, we have to make sure that any support we do is targeted and temporary. I think we have to focus it on working people. Ideally, you want to use existing mechanisms to get that cash to people.
What's that
if
mean,
you can.
though? Is that working for families?
Well, it could be. It could be. We've got
mean?
tax and other dispersal mechanisms that we can use to get funds to people. But we
Sorry, you just got to listen out for the CEO buzzwords. This is CEO buzzword FM coming up. You ready? It's a good one.
Need to think through whether we can use some of that or not, because it's the most efficient way of doing it. But then it has to be economically responsible, because if we're going to go out and borrow a whole bunch more money, if we're going to go out and actually spend, that's going to have huge implications, as you saw with the Fitch downgrade on the weekend.
I get it, but I just want to know what's the trigger. Is it 370 at least?
No answer
I mean,
yet.
something's got to start it.
We've already started thinking about it. We'll have stuff to say about it shortly.
But is it the price?
Is
it the number of weeks we go at this level?
It's just recognising there are massive pressures in the rural community, particularly around diesel. That's our critical fuel.
But that's happening right now.
That's happening right now.
Do you need another week before you go?
No, we don't. We
So
need
is
to be
it
able to
time
get
or dollars?
We're going to need to get people time. It's going to need to get people support quickly.
Okay. Lawrence.
So you feel informed now, Chewy? You've got those specific answers?
I feel less informed. Yeah. I feel like my brain has completely evacuated as a protection mechanism for itself. Look, these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. Now, I kind of agree with the thing that just cutting excise tax on fuel is not the way to go. Right?
But they could do it. But they could do it tomorrow if they wanted to.
They could do it, but they don't want it. I actually agree with them. It's not the best solution. So we have heard that the real concern here is diesel. Right? So whatever mechanism they're talking about, as an emergency mechanism, has to revolve around diesel. As far as petrol goes, then the argument needs to be, we're not going to reduce excise tax because that's where it is on petrol, and that's bad. But we have to encourage people to use less of it. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen them going, fucking, until this resolves itself, free public transport. You know, we're making sure that there's more trains, there's more buses. We're just, because we need you to stop using as much petrol. You know, the message is not out there. I saw people this weekend taking their boats to the lake. You know, the people aren't making that choice. But it's a question of, are you solving a cost of living crisis because it is bad for you in the polls? Or are we concerned about our fuel supply for our critical industries and freight?
Yeah.
And
sorry, I didn't.
None of the many words that Luxon threw around there was instructive on that point at all. We are adrift.
I didn't mean to put you off there by waving at you. I was waving at someone behind the camera who's going to bed, so I apologise about that. All right, let's get some of these super chats and we'll go home. Whatever. Gold says it's a pipeline of ships. Typically, we have 8 in transit at any point. Currently, we have 5 in transit. There you go. Someone's been doing their research, Mr. Gold. Pete says Chewy releasing the strategic fufu reserve.
There are no reserves. It's completely free-flowing.
It's always bubbling just under the surface. Arvid says, do you remember when officials recommended to recognise Palestine and Luxon's government didn't? So don't tell me about international law. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like I heard him saying in one of these interviews as well, talk about advice, the advice that's coming, the advice. It's like the same person who says we don't read reports. Literally, my ministers won't read. We don't follow advice. Overred Rover, jacket on TV because no second assistant to land with it.
Usually there's an intern with a jacket over their head just out of
like who wears a helmet and the helmet's got like a clothes rack coming off it. They just walk along behind him with the jacket at any time. Andrew, hey Pat, we spoke pre-Christmas on call and you encourage consistency. Been on every week since. It's going great. So thanks. Your work inspires. Oh, that was Andrew talking about his own podcast. Well done, Andrew. Good on you, mate. Yep. Consistency is the biggest thing. A consistency and having a little ginger friend who blows their stack often. They're the two things you need in a podcast. Overred Rover, a la the devil wears Prada. Thank you for your super chats. Thank you for all for your super chats. Yeah. All right, Chewy. Is there anything else before we say good night? I don't have anything else.
Things are going to get much worse before they get better.
National tying us to the must be mast. Got it now. Tying us to the mast on the ship of fuels. See how easy we did there? Fuels. I got that from Jel. Sorry for butchering it, Jel, but in my defense, there's a spelling mistake. Tying us to the mast on the ship of fuels. There you go. I got it out in the end.
I'm just to take us out, I'm going to read something from an article that I read today, which is just.
Is your phone doing crazy things? I'm getting a woo 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 in my ears.
Okay, I'll take it away
Anyway.
from my. I'm going to read this. This is from an article that I read today. The logic, insofar as there is any, goes like this. The war has crashed the global oil market so hard that the US administration needs the enemy's oil to keep gasoline prices from eating into their midterm results. They are unsanctioning the people that they've been bombing because the bombing is working too well at the thing that they didn't want it to do. The sanctions were necessary to stop Iran from funding the war, but the war made the sanctions too effective. So the sanctions had to be lifted to fund the war effort against the country that no longer needs the sanctions because the oil revenues that sanctions were preventing are now required to prevent the economic damage caused by preventing those revenues. Which in itself is a consequence of the military campaign designed to make sanctions unnecessary by making Iran the kind of country that doesn't need sanctioning, which it would be if the sanctions hadn't been lifted to pay for making it that way. Are we clear?
Very clear. Here's an interesting email from Megan. It's going to be very large and be in front of our faces, so just be aware. See? We are usually... Can we make it any different? Like when we do that? No, if we do that? No. It's just going to own us. All right. We are usually a one-car household, but it's a dirty diesel ute for various reasons, hunting, towing, camping off-road. My dad from Dunedin is giving us his Wamaru, his FEV, plug-in hybrid electrical vehicle. Yeah. Town car for the duration of the crisis for me and the kids to run around to get to and from work, daycare, supermarket. He is biking or busing around Dunedin in the meantime, so thankful for him. We are seriously looking into a FEV Outlander secondhand when we can afford it. We have also agreed as a household that the full, and then it actually stops. There must be I didn't realize this true, but there must be a text.
Character limit.
Character limit. Didn't know that. I was going to say there is some options in New Zealand now. I mean, they're probably still quite expensive, but that BYD Shark 6, I'll bring it up.
That'd
if
be
people,
about the only one.
there's Rivians. You can buy Rivians in New Zealand now, I think. And there's a Great Wall one, but I don't think the range is very good on the Great Wall one. And I just heard that frickin' the Lightning, America has the F-150 Lightning, they're stopping producing it. They're going to stop manufacturing it, which sucks. So I mean, like, you know, expensive. Got it. Not just saying, but there are utes on the market now that do fit that criteria.
Well, I love it when people say that this is expensive and it's the same price as a Ranger.
Yeah.
Which nobody says is expensive.
Yeah. I like my utes. I struggle because I do like a Ranger too, but I could never do it. But Chevy has the best electric ute in the world at the moment, and that's what I want to come to New Zealand the day after I win Lotto. That's what I want.
One of the things that I noticed, because I've still got a trade me alert for the type of car that I have, because I like to keep track of how much they're worth. I noticed that their prices, asking prices on Trade Me, have
going
gone
up
from around 14,000 up until the low 20s.
Yeah.
So people are trying to make money, and there are car yards that specialise in EVs that are moving them faster than they've ever moved them before. So
we spoke
there's
to
some panicking.
So we spoke to a whatever you call a car salesperson.
Oh,
car salesperson.
Ding ding ding, ding ding ding. Well done, everyone. 2-hour show.
Oh God. Who told us the box, the new little Chinese one, that in Christchurch they sold 10 of them on Saturday.
Yeah.
So they are flying out the door. Hey, Chevy, if you want to sponsor our show and bring one of these across for me, I like
They're still too big. I'd still feel like a wanker driving one.
Yeah, I am a wanker though, so I don't care. Like, I just don't care. I think it's freaking gorgeous. I would drive that in a heartbeat. Although, because the Lightning didn't come here, I'm assuming that the thing won't. That it won't either. Anyway, I'm disgusted that it's 2 hours. I don't do 2-hour shows, so we need to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
There's a couple of starred. Welcome to the age of Mad Max beyond Israel's time. And Detective says, achievement unlocked, stream for 2 hours straight. Yes, okay, that's us. All right, now we've got an interesting week this week. I've got Francesca Fiorentini booked in to talk to on Thursday. Actually, that's not true. She said Wednesday or Thursday, and I've said Thursday, and we haven't quite nailed that down, but that'll hopefully be Thursday night. And there was some conversations with a Green MP, I won't say names in case it doesn't happen, about a housing policy that gets released on Wednesday, and have them coming on Wednesday night, to which I responded, we've been talking about getting Marama and Chloe on, to which they responded, well, let's get some of us on. So we'll probably have someone on Wednesday night. It could be Marama and Chloe. We'll wait and see. We haven't nailed those down yet. So be a fun week. And if you don't know who Franny Fio is, she runs the Bituation Room, which is one of the greatest names for a podcast ever. She used to be on, it's pretty good, eh? She used to be on TYT until Cenk Uygur tried to tell her that she wasn't, that her leftist policies weren't working for him anymore, when she claimed that there was going to be concentration camps in America, which there ended up being with Alligator Alley. And so now she's a part of, she's doing her own thing and is growing hand over fist. So, yeah, I've proposed we talk on Thursday. Hopefully that will be Thursday night. If we talk on Friday, then patrons will get it first and everyone else will get it next week. But we will see what happens. Big old week. It's a big old week. And, of course, there's this, I don't know, we probably won't talk about fuel again this week. I'm kind of over it, Chewy. I don't really want to talk about fuel again. Oh, shit, I've just realised that oh, there it is, there. You know when sometimes all your icons, is that what they're called? Graphics icons, your little shortcuts on your screen, for some reason your computer has a hissy fit and they all end up being somewhere else. And I'm like, oh, and I forgot about that. So I think I've just found the right credits. I'm not sure. If this is the wrong credits, I apologise, and that will be righted tomorrow night because they are not in the regular place. Other than that, I think we're done. You got something in the private chat. Do I need to worry about those?
Oh, no, they're for later.
They're for our after show. That's BHN After Dark. Yep. All right, team. Thanks for being with us tonight. I apologise in advance that it went for 2 hours. I'm disgusted in myself. It should never have happened. And I guess we're going to catch you tomorrow night from That means we kind of did a 3-hour show because it's time and a half on a public holiday. So that's pretty gross. That is pretty gross.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what you impact. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's big hairy news.
I don't think I have anything to add tonight, Chewy. Anything you want to mention? Anything you want to shout out there? You gonna tell people to vote or something like that?
No, you should definitely vote. You should just definitely get other people to vote.
All right, team.
Do that.
Thanks for being with us tonight. Be well, be safe. We will catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for the next edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo!
Cheers, man.